All right. Well, good day, and let's talk. I want to talk a bit about influencers today, and I admit that this is a topic that I've been a little slow about, or not fully realizing how important it is. When I first heard about influencers, I heard about them in the context of these are people who do makeup tutorials and give fashion tips, or like in the world of photography, people who shill for camera companies. And so I kind of dismissed them because I didn't feel that they were of really any importance to my life or what I'm interested in. But what I didn't realize was that they were actually active in every aspect of American life, including politics. And I think that's pretty... I find it problematic, and I want to know what other people think, because it seems to me that what they're doing is that they are replacing journalists and subject matter experts and just generally people who are way better thinkers than themselves about political issues and current events. And I guess that's why I really wanted to make this video, because as important as it is to critique those who are, on the political right, people who I would consider like, of having the, I don't want to say enemies, but are on the other side, we'll say that. You have people like Brian Tyler Cohen and Adam Mockler, Midas Touch Media, and a whole bunch of others who are on the left, and that I think they are operating in bad faith, and that they have a particular outlook that's not helpful. And I want to start by playing a clip from Brian Tyler Cohen that I really think sums up his whole project. So here you go.
Second, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. That's not regulatory oversight. That's extortion. That is a federal official threatening a media company with government retaliation unless they silence a critic of the president. And for those who still don't understand, let me translate that from bureaucrat speak. Nice broadcast license you have there. Be a real shame if something happened to it. But what's worse, this isn't an isolated incident. It is a very, very clear pattern. Just weeks ago in July, CBS canceled Stephen Colbert's Late Night in what was clearly politically motivated retaliation. Trump personally celebrated Colbert's cancellation, writing on Truth Social, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings. I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next." And guess what? That is exactly what happened.
So, you can see in this clip that he's fast, he's sarcastic, but more than that, though, he's outraged, right? That's his perspective. And what we see from him is day after day and video after video, and same with Adam Mockler and others, is that we see outrage. And basically, my thesis about these guys is that while, yes, I agree with a lot of their politics, and yes, a lot of what they say is fact-based, they operate in a weird space that they don't call themselves journalists, and they're very careful about their, like in the copy on their websites and stuff, it approaches saying that they're journalists, right? Because they provide coverage. They show breaking news. But it never says that they're journalists themselves. And I think that's really important, because when it comes to journalism, it might be the case that we don't like the journalistic standards, or we think someone has fallen short of journalistic standards, or we think journalistic standards need to change. At least there's something called journalistic standards that we can debate and that we can talk about, and that it serves as a guideline for people in that line of work. There is no equivalent for influencers or for YouTube personalities, and I think that's a really important distinction to make, because these guys want to operate in a world of a certain type of credibility, while at the same time not being subject to the rules and responsibilities of actually operating within that realm. So, it's weird, because yes, a lot of what they say is fact-based. A lot of the things that they're encouraging us to be outraged about are worthy of outrage. But I guess the question for me is, what's the what's the impact of this outrage? Because day after day, week after week, like I said, you can go to their websites and you can be given something new to feel outrage about. And I'm interested in knowing what other people think. What I think this does is, I think that the function of outrage is it's emotionally compelling and it draws us in day after day. I think it feeds a sense of like moral superiority, political superiority, and I'm not immune to that myself. But also, I think that outrage leads to inaction. I think that people only take action if they have a sense of hope, or if they believe that their action can actually have an impact. And what the daily diet of outrage shows us and tells us is that we really can't have an impact. And I want to get to this next clip from Brian Tyler Cohen, and this gets to my next point. So here you go. Here's another clip from him.
This is the playbook. First, you target the most vulnerable critics, comedians, satirists, opinion hosts. Then you move up the food chain to news anchors and reporters. And finally, you create an environment where self-censorship becomes so pervasive that actual censorship isn't even necessary. We are watching it happen in real time. Jimmy Kimmel's firing isn't just about one comedian's late-night monologue. It's about whether we're going to have a free press in this country, or whether media companies are going to live in fear of government retaliation every time they air something the president doesn't like. This isn't the road to fascism. This is what it looks like once fascism has arrived.
Okay, so you hear that second clip, right? And it's intense. And it's alarming, right? He's not saying that we're on the road to fascism. He's saying that fascism is absolutely here now, and it's running the government. And, so this is very heady and scary stuff. And, I expect, as I was watching this video for the first time, I was sort of expecting that the very next thing that would come would be a call to action. And indeed, a call to action does come. And so I'm going to show you the rest of the clip, and there's no cut here, actually. I'm picking up on the very next frame of the clip. So here's what the call to action looks like after he's already announced that fascism is here.
Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.
Okay, so in that clip, I really feel like he is laying bare the fact that there's no there. That his project doesn't actually have any meaning beyond keeping us fed a daily diet of outrage. And again, he's not alone here, all right? These other people I've already mentioned, like Mockler and Minus Touch Media and many others, do the same thing. So it's not just one guy, it's like a whole genre of communication. I don't want to call it news, I don't want to call it information, because I don't think it is really those things. I think it's ideological communication. And so he says that, the call to action is to like and subscribe. The call to action is to give him money so that he can keep talking at us. And I'm baffled because what's the use? What are we getting out of listening to this discourse on a daily basis? We're not getting, really insightful coverage of current events. We're just getting kind of ranting, and we're getting caught up in our own emotions. And what he's proposing to us, I think, is that that's where he wants us to stay. He wants us to stay caught up in the realm of having an emotional response to what he's asked us to be outraged by. And I just think that there's, like I said, there's no there. If fascism is really here and is really running the show, then I think the call to action is pretty extreme. I think the call to action is much greater than like and subscribe. I think on the local level, since, a lot of us can't influence national policy, right? Like, I can't impact tariff policy directly, which is making inflation rise, but I can donate food and time and money to the local food bank. I can't impact national immigration policy, but many communities have not-for-profit organizations that help people who are recent immigrants or refugees. We could all dedicate our time and efforts to those organizations. I can't stop the Republicans from doing things to try to rig the 2026 elections, but I can volunteer to be a poll worker so that at least I know there's one person in the room that really understands democracy and how it needs to happen, what happens at the local level for an election. So I think that there's a lot of things we can do to have impact in our communities and to get progressive ideas out into the public sphere in a positive way. And I think that should be the real call to action, is take actual action in our communities, to take our ideas out into the world and then live our ideas and our ideals, to be willing to talk to people. Like, if these guys were sending us that message, I'd be much less skeptical of them. But it seems to me that really what they're saying is that they're here to make a buck. They're fiddling while Rome burns, and that we need to like and subscribe so that we can stay involved in the outrage that they are feeding us on a daily basis. And I just don't buy it. So anyway, that's my perspective on these things. Curious to know what other people think. Because I think if we don't, and let me just, one last thought, I really believe in the left. I really believe that that's where compassion and pragmatics and politics can come together in a way they just can't in the center or the far right or the center right or the center left, because these are people who are far more concerned with power and money than anything else. And I think that while power and money are always an issue, no matter where you are in the political spectrum, I think that there is an ethics and a commitment to people who are disadvantaged on the far left that just doesn't exist elsewhere. So I think the far left is really the best source of this kind of intellectual leadership. But we have to provide it. And we can't just sign into YouTube each day and allow ourselves to go down to the rabbit hole of outrage. I think it's time for action, and it's a time for ideas. But anyway, that's just me. I'm really curious to know what other people think of this. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Take care.